Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Chad here from Moss Pond & Gun, and we have another Firearms Fact video for you. Now, we haven't really been doing a lot of the Firearms Facts videos, but we're hoping to pick this series back up and try to get a little bit of episodic form content back in there for you guys related to this show concept. But the Firearms Facts have been very popular videos, and that's where we just take certain things and kind of break them down for you a little bit. And we were thinking about a good way to get back into it, and I thought we would talk a little bit about PDWs. Not only the firearms, but namely the cartridges that PDWs use. In case you guys don't know, a PDW means personal defense weapon. PDWs have been around for years and years and years. It's not a new concept. Basically, a PDW is a small, handy weapon that usually fires an intermediate cartridge of intermediate power. We're not talking a battlefield cartridge that you're going to be shooting 300 or 400 yards. We're talking close range.
Close range. I mean, it's within 100 yards. I mean, usually within 25 yards, to be honest with you. Close quarters combat.
Yeah, so personal defense range generally means that the enemy is close enough to you where you can't get away, you have to fight them. So personal defense weapon usually, in modern times, when you look at guns like the P90 from FN, you know, holds a lot of shots, wicked high rate of fire. You got targets close within to you. You're having to fire, high rate of fire, get them off of you. Basically, we're talking about get off me guns.
Well, not only, you know, in the type of gun, but also the configuration. I mean, most of the PDWs are going to be very short, very compact weapons, short barrels, or in the P90's case, a bullpup style design.
Sure.
You know, for the most part, very compact weapon. I mean, the thing can literally fit up right under a coat, you know, or just be hanging right off your side if you're some kind of operator, whatever the case may be, but short, handy weapons.
Absolutely. So. Well, not only the configuration of the weapon, but the cartridge, as we stated. Now, we are going to try to lay out a little bit of fact type stuff here when it comes to the cartridges used. Now, there's a lot of cartridges that lend themselves well to being a PDW, namely 5.7 by 28, the FN57, of course, with many of you, is a very, very popular pistol, very high velocity, even for a lightweight bullet. NATO did a lot of testing. They compared it to the German 4.3 by 30, I believe it was.
4.6.
4.6 by 30. A very experimental cartridge. I think the H&K MP7 is chambered in that caliber. Very high velocity, but the 5.7, after NATO did quite a bit of testing, they determined that the 5.7 kind of trumped everything that was out there.
Well, and too, something to mention about the 5.7 development was that it was part of a trial to replace the 9x19.
Yeah, the 9x19, of course, has been around for years and years, and there's not a subgun or machine gun on planet Earth that at some point hasn't been chambered in 9mm. It's an extremely common cartridge. It's been in use since early on. You know, the Germans developed it along with the P08 Luger. So it's been around early 1900s and has favored quite well in military service ever since. Of course, many subguns chambered in 9mm, and even, you know, later broom handle conversions. You know, they would have broom handles with shoulder stocks and select fire, and those were really some of the first PDWs. So in the early days, you know, back in the early 1900s, World War I and on, with the P08 Luger and the 9mm being developed, the 9mm seen a lot of service from early on, and that was really one of the first PDW type cartridges, really, if you think about it. When you look at like a select fire broom handle with a 20-round magazine and a shoulder stock, that was a gun that was intended to have a rapid rate of fire and to be able to get troops off of you when they're really close. You can't run away, you can't fight them hand to hand, so a PDW lays down that fire.
Kind of intermediate range there.
Intermediate range, yeah. I mean, you know, and of course, one group of people that honestly have taken that and embraced it so much more than any other army in history is the Soviet Union. With the 7.62 by 25, the Tokarev service pistol, of course, an extremely hot pistol caliber, very, very powerful. For many years, the 7.62 by 25 was kind of the king of the hill with testing body armor penetration and testing, you know, armor defeating capabilities. And the Soviet Union was really one of the first group of guys to get together and say, hey, let's get 30 men on a line running with, you know, big old drums of 7.62 by 25 ripping out of there as fast as it can.
Well, those Papa Shaws, man, I mean, the rate of fire on those things is just ridiculous.
It is.
I mean, but, you know, a lot of people think that the first bottleneck pistol cartridge or subgun caliber cartridge was like a 357 SIG. Give me a break.
Yeah.
7.62 by 25.
Well, you know, your early broom handles, of course, were chambered in 30
mils or two. So.
And that was one of the first, as far as I know, the first bottleneck cartridges. So a lot of your bottleneck pistol cartridges like 7.62 by 25, 30 Mauser, 9mm being really early forms of the PDW cartridge. I mean, maybe not intentionally, but as history went on, people found that small subguns chambered in 9mm were extremely effective. Of course, with the development going back to the 5.7 by 28, extremely hot cartridge, carries a lot of energy, pretty good bit of velocity, a generous magazine capacity. The whole reason that they wanted to develop the 5.7 by 28 was to reduce collateral damage. If a SWAT team ran into a building with MP5s chambered in 9mm and riddled the whole room trying to get the bad guys, they would risk those projectiles going through the wall, hurting innocent people. They wanted a cartridge that would break up in the wall and lose energy quickly when hitting a hard surface, yet would have devastating impact on a soft target.
Well, not only that, but the 5.7 was also developed to penetrate soft body armor, which, you know, at the time, like level 3, level 3A body armor, like in a Kevlar format, was designed to stop 9mm and up. But a very high velocity, lightweight round in a kind of a Spitzer-shaped, you know, projectile like the 5.7 just zips right through that soft Kevlar armor. And that was the whole idea: penetrate the armor, penetrate the target, but not over-penetrate the hard barriers surrounding it. So very, very safe round in close quarters combat.
Absolutely.
And I mean, these magazines for the pistol, for the 5.7 pistol, 20 shots, and they actually produce a 30-shot mag as well.
All right. Well, speaking of 30 shots, you know, we wanted this video to compare different PDW cartridges, and in the current market, as the way things are going, there's actually a pretty popular resurgence of 22 Magnum. Here we have a Kel Tec Pmr 30. Many of you guys know about this pistol. It's very sought after. Kind of a relative take on the Grendel P30.
A little bit, yeah.
The Grendel P30 was a very popular pistol early on, a 30-shot 22 Magnum. The Grendel didn't really do all that great in terms of sales. The guns were fragile. They didn't run very well. They weren't very reliable. But now we have the Kel Tec Pmr 30, which allows you to put 30 shots of 22 Magnum in your hand. Now, unless we're talking about different projectile choices, that's kind of where 22 Magnum and 5.7 by 28 tend to kind of take some different turns there. 22 Magnum is a rimfire cartridge. Okay, so it's going to have the inherent issues that rimfire cartridges have when it comes to reliability. I love the Pmr 30. I think it's a wonderful firearm, although it's not 110% stone cold reliable like it could be.
I mean, we've had one at the range several times, and we've shot a lot of different types of ammo through it. And every now and again, there is some issue. Sometimes you'll get rim lock in the magazine because it is a rimmed case.
That's
you know,
right.
with 5.7, really not much of a case of that because it's a bottleneck cartridge and it's boxer primed, you know, rimless case.
Yep.
Plus 22 mag, non-reloadable. 5.7, reloadable cartridge.
Sure.
So,
well, one thing about the 22 Magnum, and this is just something to think about from a PDW standpoint, very little risk of over-penetration. You know, it's still going to stop. Much like 5.7, it's still going to have really good capabilities for delivering downrange energy on unarmored targets. Now, that's the thing. They don't make armor-piercing 22 Magnum ammunition. So when we look at 22 Magnum, I've just got cartridges of the world pulled up here. When we look at 22 Magnum, a 40-grain bullet delivers about 2,000 feet per second and delivers around 324 foot-pounds of energy.
now,
So
remember, guys, that test data is out of a 24-inch barrel.
yes,
So
it is.
you are going to get slower velocities out of a pistol.
Right.
Okay.
But still, though, you can't
That's-
refute the fact that
that's
that's a
stomping.
lot of ass-whooping power, rapid fire, as
Still
fast as
moving.
you can pull the trigger.
Still moving maybe 1,700 feet per
It's
second.
still moving, and it's still extremely deadly. So, you know, the 22 Magnum's a PDW cartridge, probably loses some points just for the fact that the reliability, you know, if you want a defense cartridge, you want a gun that's going to run really, really reliably. Don't get me wrong, I am a fan of the Pmr 30. I really enjoy shooting the pistol. The recoil is non-existent.
Oh, God, yeah.
If you can get your Pmr 30 running top notch and running like a top, you can pull that bad boy off and you got 30 rounds on target as quick as you can draw down. I mean, you can have 10 rounds in a bad guy in the blink of an eye.
Pretty much, if you keep that front sight on the target, man, you can just
Exactly.
lay them out.
I'm telling you, they are really fun guns to shoot. Now, the same goes for the 5.7. You got 20, 30-round magazines. The weights on the gun, certainly a lot different. The 5.7 is a little bit heavier of a pistol than the Pmr 30. The Pmr 30 is just a charm of little gun in terms of the size, the physical size of the firearm. So for modern PDWs, when it comes to pistols, a lot of guys are going to gravitate to the Kel Tec Pmr 30.
Well, also
the 5.7.
Price is a thing too. I mean, typically the 5.7s are anywhere from $1,000 on up.
Yes, the prices on the 5.7 pistols are considerably more expensive. The ammunition is considerably more expensive. This is just some 40 grain Federal full metal jacket ammunition here. This stuff commonly sells for 30 bucks a box or so, whereby your 22 Magnum for a 50 round box,
17 bucks,
$17. So you're looking at about half the price on the ammo from 22 Magnum versus 5.7.
One thing too about the ammunition, 5.7 was designed also to have slightly less recoil than the 9mm. I think about 30 or 40% in most cases.
It is very gentle shooting.
It is very gentle shooting, and most of the time the guns that fire 5.7 are going to be lighter weight. I mean, P90 for example on the 5.7 pistol, but also you got AR uppers that shoot 5.7 that take the P90 magazine. So
I would have to say that for points wise, if I had to give points to either cartridge, I would probably prefer the 5.7 just because with 5.7 you got your wonderful FN 5.7 pistol, you got your P90, you got ARs that fire 5.7 by 28, and the 22 Magnum, there's not a whole lot of reliable platforms in a rifle configuration that fire a cartridge like that. Now, in a future video, we're going to be doing a video called Perfect Pairs.
Oh yeah.
And in Perfect Pairs, we're going to talk about handguns and carbines that take the same magazines and the same caliber, so that you have interchangeability of magazines. Well, that in the modern PDW world is very important.
Well, speaking of carbines and maybe the modern world, I want to tell them about the old M1 and the 30 carbine.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day when we were thinking of doing this Pdw cartridge thing. When we were talking about PDWs, the 30 carbine, in my opinion, is one of the first true PDWs.
Well, at a time, they were thinking about replacing the 1911 with the gun.
Exactly. I mean, the gun was intended to fire a relatively intermediate cartridge at relatively intermediate distances.
110 grain bullet, about, 1,800 feet per second or so?
Actually, about 2,000 feet per second. I do have some stuff from Cartridges of the World here. And with 30 carbine, they're showing around 2,000 feet per second with 110 grain FMJ delivering almost 1,000 foot-pounds of energy.
That's right on up there with 5.56.
Well, here's the thing. When you're talking combat ranges, if I'm in a fight building to building, and me and another guy is armed with an AR, and we're going through, and I've got an M1 and he's got an AR, at combat distances inside of a building, foot-pounds per energy-wise, we're really not far off if he's running 55 grain. I'm running a bullet that's twice as large in terms of the physical weight. It's twice as heavy, and the foot-pounds of energy is not too far off from 55 grain.
Well, you got a little bit more, I think, with 5.56. I mean, 1,250, 1,300 or so, give or take. But
however, from a PDW standpoint, when guys are running around from building to building, worried about room-to-room clearing, I mean, you got to think that in the times of World War II, when these guns were very predominant, there really wasn't any kind of doctrine or training with guys to actually do any kind of close quarters work. It was just them kicking indoors, throwing grenades in there, and then flushing the place out with machine guns. Or if they did take any kind of tactful or careful clearing of a given building, then of course the M1 carbine would come in very handy, being much smaller, able to get around corners. So guys, when it comes to PDWs, if you're looking for a long gun that's a PDW, whether it's an AR or a little M1 carbine or whatever, the length of the gun is always going to be a factor as to how effective of a PDW it's going to be. You want something that in close quarters you can tuck in nice and light and really control the gun really well.
You could go into a room basically and you see a lot of old images of guys in World War II with their carbines under the shoulder like this, but close range or whatever, just point and shoot, but then you can easily bring the gun up for a longer range shot and be accurate out to 150, 200 yards with this with a lot of power still.
Yes, absolutely.
And this gun is so light. I mean, this is a third of the weight of a regular M1.
Oh yes, and that's the thing I was going to mention before was that a trooper going through and clearing a building with an M1 Garand. Don't get me wrong, I love the M1 Garand, but you're not going to be chasing around corners and really pieing corners and doing what you're trying to do to control yourself in an urban environment with that big long rifle and a powerful cartridge, not as fast a follow-up shot.
Well, yeah, and higher capacity magazines, detachable magazines as well, not having to be strip loaded. So you had 15 shot mags, and did you have 20 and 30 shot mags at the time of World War II?
The 30 shot mags didn't really come along until the Korean War.
So 15 and 20s?
Most of the World War II era, just 15 shot mags, but you're still almost doubling the capacity of a standard M1 Garand. So even in World War II, the PDW concept, where it may not have necessarily been like the doctrine of, say, a PDW, but it was still that concept. You know, these guns were issued to radio operators, all the way to people, you know, cleaning out water facilities or whatever. I mean, every trooper in an intermediate position was armed with M1 carbines, and then they were also in favor with airborne troops, frontline troops. I mean, believe me, frontline guys still used them.
Well, paratroopers especially use the versions of these with the folding stocks.
The wire folding
the wire folding stocks to really take that length down.
From a military standpoint, at least, you know, the U.S. military, it seems that the M1 carbine, to me, was really like the first military PDW.
In a sense, I guess you could be right.
I would say so. I mean, the Thompson Submachine Gun, I mean, many would argue, well, the 45 ACP raining down and just throwing some lead out of there. Yes, a Thompson Submachine Gun could be considered in the realm of the PDW, but remember, we're talking lightweight, concealability, something that's easily man-portable, easy to control. So when it comes to Pdw cartridge, I mean, we've talked about 7.62 by 25 a bit. We've talked about 30 carbine, 9mm, 5.7 by 28, 22 Magnum. You know, there are other pistol cartridges that have really lended themselves to being excellent for that purpose as well. 40 cal, 45, 10mm. Many modern cartridges have been developed and used in subguns. But the whole concept of a PDW is very hot right now.
Well, very popular submachine guns out there that can be considered PDWs, MP5s, the 10mm MP5s, the UMP series.
Yes.
I mean, especially the 40s and 45s are excellent PDW guns.
They are, and we fired a lot of them over the years. And I tell you what, and the whole thing I wanted to kind of just really get out there in this video is that there's a lot of cartridges that lend themselves well for that purpose. Remember that guns have specific uses above just, you know, certain things. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is, let's say that, you know, I've got some 30-06 hunting rifle. Well, that's used for hunting. I mean, I'm not going to defend myself at combat ranges with an 06 hunting rifle or an M1 Garand or you know, a bench rest rifle. PDW, intermediate caliber, short distance, rapid follow-up shots, concealability, portability. That's what you're going for in a PDW. You want a gun that's easy to deploy, easy to shoot, easy to follow up with, to move around with, to track your targets. More importantly, the faster you can get that gun on target and to eliminate the threat when it's close to you, that's the whole point of a PDW. And we've been doing it for years. Armies have been doing it for years, even though they may not know it.
Well, one thing too to consider, that a lot of the cartridges that we enjoy in the civilian market nowadays were originally military cartridges for the most part. I mean, 5.7, a lot of civilians enjoy the 5.7 and semi-automatic platforms, but a lot of the ammunition that was available to law enforcement military units, you know, like armor piercing, they have some training rounds, a few different types of ammunition out there, but the armor piercing rounds, those are the actual only rounds that will penetrate soft armor. I mean, you're not going to get through soft armor with a standard 5.7, even with the velocity. It's just
you're not going to
happen.
get through it with a VMAX or anything either. So.
But they are very fun rounds to shoot because of the light recoil. But you know, reloading them, I mean, it'd be a charm. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Save a little bit of money. But
this certainly hasn't been an attempt to glorify the 5.7, but I will have to say that just looking at this video in the light that we did, I mean, I like my M1 carbine a lot. I enjoy shooting the M1. It's a great little gun. I would not feel unarmed with it, even in a modern sense. Even knowing that there's guys out there with AR-15s, believe me, a round on target is a round on target. And if you're a good shot with a little gun like this, you can really do a lot to defend yourself with a small gun like that. The 5.7 itself, you know, I have always been a fan of the 5.7 by 28. Energy-wise, it's certainly going to trump 22 Magnum in several instances. Considering barrel lengths, I mean, most of the data that's out there is probably gotten on around a 10.5-inch barrel from a 5.7, whereby the data that you look at on 22 Magnums coming from a 24-inch barrel.
Typically, rifle data on the 22 mag, typically pistol data or like PDW barrel lengths with the 5.7, because the powders are a little bit more modern and faster burning and such, and the 5.7
the guns can handle a lot more pressure.
You know, that.
But the 5.7 generally is a really awesome cartridge that can lend itself to quite a variety of situations. But you know, let's not discount 5.56. You know, ARs, short barrel ARs or pistol ARs that are set up for very small spaces, concealability. You know, you can't discount an AR-15 for a personal defense weapon as well.
Well, you know, you've got, what was the AAC Honey Badger in the 300 Blackout?
Yep.
A little short setup, suppressed with like a little collapsible stock on it, you know, little short weapon. that could be a perfect PDW, and that's
You know,
a totally different
it's
caliber.
It's funny how you mentioned 300 blackout, because it should really just make the point all much greater that we're talking about, because you look at the 300 blackout and it's gaining so much popularity, but what are we doing? We're going back to, you know, heavier bullets, intermediate cartridge, intermediate distance. 300 blackout, I can see where it would really lend itself well to personal defense ranges and things like that, or extended combat ranges. So I think the concept of a PDW is really hot in today's market. A lot of people are looking at, you know, light recoil, high capacity, quick follow-up shots, easy to track the targets, you know, easy to put the rounds where you want. We hope you enjoyed this video today. Hopefully it was straight to the point. I know we drug out on a few of our concepts here, but personally, I'm a big fan of the M1 carbine. I like the 5.7. I like the PMR 30. I kind of like them all, you know. So I'm kind of the sort of guy I like to have the whole set.
Well,
that's just me.
It's kind of how we are.
Absolutely, but at the end of the day, guys, no firearm and ammunition combination is going to replace good training, good tactics, and having your wits about you and your common sense in a situation where you may have to defend yourself. So just remember that. No amount of equipment in the world is going to save you without the proper amount of training and the proper disposition to the situation. We appreciate y'all watching. We'll catch you guys next time. We hope you enjoy the firearms facts. We have many more of them on the way. More gun gripes, more range videos, gunsmithing, reloading. If you guys are new to this channel, certainly you need to subscribe. Check us out. We got a whole lot going on. Thanks for your time today, and we'll catch you next time.
Take it easy.